Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard.
Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today we have another exciting guest who's going to talk about the exciting things he does. His name is Joe Hannoush, and he's running for office. So welcome to the podcast, Joe.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Joe, let's get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch.
All right, yeah. My name is Joe Hannoush. I'm a Libertarian Party candidate for U.S. House Representatives here in the state of Florida. But if I elected, I go to D.C. This is my third time running. I ran for state representative here in Florida in 2018 and 2020, also as a Libertarian. And I'm looking to make a difference. Get back to our constitutional founding and stop infringing on rights of peaceful people.
Sounds like a plan. So kindly tell our audience how you got involved in the Libertarian Party in the first place.
Yeah, so I was actually both a Democrat and then I was a Republican, and I voted that way. I was never really all in to either major party, but they kind of disappointed me. I would vote for them, and they would say things during their campaigns, and then they wouldn't actually do it in legislation, and things would just go, most things, not everything, but most things would go the opposite direction. So a buddy of mine told me about Ron Paul, who at the time was running for president back in like 07, 08. And I wasn't like really hooked right away, but he kept, pushing me like, this guy, he's got good ideas, he sounds good. And then finally I got fed up, and I actually took an online quiz called isidewith.com. And it's a bunch of questions, and it comes out with a percentage for what parties and what candidates you agree with. So it came up like 87% or 93% Libertarian Party, and Gary Johnson was running at the time for a Libertarian candidate. I looked up, more about Gary Johnson, about the Libertarian Party, and I was like, wow, these guys make sense here. So, sorry, my alarm went off. It was just, made a lot of sense to me. So, I started voting Libertarian, and my first vote was in 2012 for Gary Johnson for president. I voted for him in 2016. I was really hoping he would get in the debates and really make a difference, but it didn't happen. I voted for him for president, and then down the ballot was like a bunch of Republicans and Democrats, and I looked at their policies, their voting records, and it was all against what I liked. So I decided at that time to change my registration. I was MPA at the time. I decided to change my registration to Libertarian and run for office. Be the change I wish to see. Give voters a vote, for them instead of, the establishment and form big government. So I did that, and I ran in 2018, and I got involved in actually the person that ran for U.S. Senate here in Florida in 2016 happened to live in my county. So he told me about the county affiliate, got me involved there, and got me involved in the state. I went around and met a bunch of Libertarians here in Florida, I'm in my third Libertarian campaign now, and I've been involved for 5 years or so now. So that's how I got involved. I'm very focused on local, though, and my campaign. That's really all I have time for these days.
Sure. So kindly tell our audience the demographics of the area you're running in.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. The question I get a lot is usually, what district are you running in, right? We just had the U.S. Census in 2020, so in Florida gained a congressional district. So the state legislature has to redraw the map. And they had their own version of the map, and then the state Senate had a different version, and then the governor has his own version. So they're currently duking it out right now. So I actually don't know what the district will look like. However, looking at the maps, I live in Ormond Beach, which is just north of Daytona Beach, here on the east coast, central coast of Florida. So it'll probably be around that area, the northeast central coast of Florida area.
Okay. And what's the population of the area approximately?
I would say probably maybe 1 million, maybe a little bit.
So how many votes would it take to win the election, do you think?
The win of the election, honestly, I don't know, because the demographics are going to be different than the last time, so I can't even really look at the last election, but I would say, probably 200,000 or more, I would say.
Okay.
Not everyone votes, so.
Yeah, sure.
So probably
Yeah,
200,000, 250,000 would be the win number.
okay. So how do you plan to implement your libertarian vision in this position? Shall you get it?
Yeah, if I'm elected, we have a constitution. This is the founding document of how our government is supposed to run federally, right? So we
Yes.
have certain things we're not allowed to do, certain things we are allowed to do. So I would stick with that. And, I would try to use obviously, if I elected, I would have to deal with, Republicans and Democrats and have to get them on board with my ideas. So I would try to convince them, hey, or enough of them anyway, that, hey, this is not working what we're doing now. It hurts, Democrats voters in this way, it hurts Republican voters in this way, and it hurts everyone, everyone. So why not try this? And I'm a very solution-oriented person. So it's like, something a little bit for the Republican voters, a little bit for Democrat voters, and they'll probably get on board. Maybe not, but I'll try to work with both sides of the aisle to get things passed, because frankly, I would need both Democrats and Republicans to vote in favor or something to get anything passed.
Oh, that's a good attitude to have. You're not going to demonize them or oppose them, but you want to work with them.
Right, yeah. I have to. If I go up there and just, scream taxation is theft or like repeal all laws for everything ever, I'll get exactly 0 votes. Like no bill will make it out of the committee, which is, not really helping anybody anywhere. So I want to actually help people. Like right now, we'll take, for example, a big one. It's very popular with people, and I think most legislators, is decriminalization of cannabis,
Yes.
Right now, it's considered a Schedule I drug, which is like no medical benefits at all. It's just bad. People go to jail for it. And that's something that would be kind of common sense. Like, why don't we just do that? So I try to focus, help work with Democrats and Republicans that would be agreeable to that and see what we can do. Legalize it. I know some of them will want to regulate it and tax it. Like, okay, let's do that. But at least we're not putting people in jail anymore for it. Take people away from their family, cost to taxpayers for incarceration. They have a record now, so they're not going to be able to get jobs. So it just hurts everywhere around. So I'll try to explain that to them and try to get that passed. Help a lot of people.
Sure. So other than the cannabis issue, what other issues are on your platform for this race?
Yeah, the big one for me is balancing the budget. And we're $30 trillion in debt and going up. And 40 years ago, I used 40 years ago because that's about when I was born, we were under 1 trillion. So no matter, and both political parties have been in power since that, right? Multiple times.
Yes.
So they've all added to the deficit. They all added to the debt. So that's something where I could kind of take them on and be like, hey, let's not give money to foreign governments when we have people here that are, losing the value of their dollar due to inflation and higher taxation. They literally just passed an omnibus bill that does that. $14 billion to Ukraine, and I'm sure other countries as well. We can't give money to other people, other countries, the governments of other countries. Not the other people, it's the countries of other governments. While we have people here that are forced to live paycheck to paycheck and balance their books no matter what, and they can't just print money. If we print money, we go to jail. The government does it, it's okay. So we got to end all that stuff.
So you see foreign aid as a big way to reduce the deficit?
That's one way, and honestly, it's not a huge part of the spending. It's I think 1%, if that. But another one would be decriminalization of cannabis would also reduce the enforcement cost of that and incarceration cost of that. So that'll help probably more locally and at state level, but it would help federally as well. Because they get, the state and local get money from the federal money, which all comes from us anyway. But another one would be ending the wars. Right now we have bases all over the world. We still have bases in Japan, in Iraq, in Germany, everywhere. You name a country, we probably have a base there, unless they really hate us or we hate them. So bringing home those troops and not deploying them would save a lot of money. It would keep those people here at home, not put them in danger's way. So that's another good way to save a lot of money and to save, medical costs too, in case they get PTSD from being overseas for, engaging in combat or whatever. So, yeah, that's another way too.
So what is your campaign strategy in this race? How are you going to reach your target audience and the voters?
Yeah, great question. This is something I stole from, I think, John Anderson, who ran for president in 1980. I believe this is his quote. But he said something, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said if I could have a 5 or 10 minute conversation at every kitchen table in America, he would win the election. That's kind of how I feel. If I could have a 5 or 10 minute conversation with every voter in the district, whatever, we'll see what it looks like. But if I could have that conversation with every voter, then I could win the election. Now, is that plausible? Probably not. But right now, I am talking to voters because I'm collecting petitions to qualify. 2,568 petitions to qualify. I have to talk to at least 3,000 people, if not more, to get that number. And some people won't sign. Some people are, not eligible to do it, and some petitions will get kicked out. But that's how I'm doing it. I just use all my free time to get my message out and talk to voters, and hope others do the same for me. And for example, I'm having this right now to actually will reach some voters, hopefully. And then after this, I'm actually going to a Republican club here locally. And talking to their voters. They invited me. So I'm friendly with the local Republicans, and yeah, I try to be friendly to everyone, and I use common sense solutions. I don't try to be too partisan or anything like that. And so that's a way to reach more people, more voters.
Interesting. That's interesting. The Republicans there, they sound open-minded that they would invite you in there.
Yeah, some of them are, not all of them, but some of them are actually open-minded because they see what I saw, and why I left the Republican Party was because their elected officials are not doing what they're said. Like, they would infringe on the amendment. They raise the taxes. Like in Florida here, we have I think $112 billion budget that just passed. I mean, you can look 5-6 years ago, it was like $80 billion. So it's gone up significantly in just a short amount of time.
And that's with both the parties, right? That have contributed to that.
Yeah, I mean that's both parties, but Republicans control Florida, and we've seen it nationally. Just the first 2 years of Donald Trump, he had a Republican Senate and a Republican House, and the deficit, or the debt, I should say, went up $2 trillion, $2 or more trillion. And then right now you're looking at it. We have Democrats control the Senate and the House, and we have a Democrat president, and the debt goes up. So, and marijuana is still not legalized. So that was a big one. I'm sure a lot of people voted for Biden because of that. So it's both parties that are doing that. And there's people in both parties that kind of see what I see, and they're open to voting for a Libertarian because they don't see their party doing what they said.
Sure. So when you ran those other races, what did you learn from those races that you're taking into this race right now?
Yeah, I learned how to get my name out there. I went on the radio. I learned how to, as Libertarians, we don't get automatic contributions to our campaigns from special interest groups, big donors, because we don't work for them. We work for people, right?
Yes.
So we're not going to legislate in carve-outs or whatever. So one thing I do is, I call into the local radio stations, and I write letters to the editor, and, I go out and talk. I collect the petitions for our first 2 campaigns also. So it's very much learning to ask the voters what's the issues on their mind and offer a solution for it. And a lot of it makes sense, and that really helps me with my platform. I mean, how I got to having my top issues is from listening to voters. I literally ask them, what's one issue that you'd like to see the state legislature at the time, or now the U.S. House of Representatives, to improve? So they kind of help me tell me what my platform will be, and I come up with a Libertarian solution.
Is that part of the cannabis deal? Is what the voters told you they're interested in cannabis reform, so that drives your desire to change that?
Yeah, that's part of it. That was more so on the state level, but it's something I've kept. It's not one of my top issues that I really talk about with voters when they ask me what one of my top issues. But the top issues are really the budget, which I mentioned before, and nearly, over 99% of the people I mentioned that to, they agree. And it's very easy because it's common sense. They literally are, they have to manage their budget of their household, right? Yeah. Same as me, same as every American, in this country. So it's very easy for them to be like, well, why isn't our federal government doing the same thing we're doing? So it's very common sense there. Another one is term limits. I just mentioned career politicians, and again, like 99% of the people I talk to, they say it's, of course we got to have term limits. It's supposed to be, you go in there for a little while, you can come back home. So those are some of the issues that the voters have told me about, which I have made part of my platform.
Sure. So are you doing this campaign by yourself, or do you have a staff that's helping you out?
I don't have an official staff or volunteers. It's mostly me.
Okay.
I do my event scheduling and my petitions and social media. I do get some volunteers here and there that help collect petitions for me or help, give me some ideas. There's someone, a fellow Libertarian here in Volusia County. She could make memes, right? She'll take quotes that I've done, like post it on my Facebook or social media, and she'll put my picture behind it, which Josie did my photography for my campaign also. And she'll send it to me. She just did this like 2 days ago. So I'll use some of those and I'll post it on my social media, on my campaign page.
Well, that's good. So how many signatures do you need to get on the ballot?
2,568 have to get verified by any registered voter in Florida.
And when do those need to be submitted by?
May 13th is the deadline, so about 8 weeks.
Okay. So that would be awesome if you can do that. We wish you luck getting those done.
Yes, thank you very much. And anyone that wants to find out more about me, they can go to joehannoush.com or look me up on Facebook. My name is JoeHannoush.
So the best way to support you would be to go to those places you just mentioned.
Yeah, either on Facebook, on Twitter. I'm not as active on Twitter, but yeah, they could just look me up, Joe Hannoush for Congress, or joehannoush.com. Yeah, if you Google me, you'll probably find me.
Excellent. Joe, thank you for coming on the podcast today and talking about your campaign. We appreciate hearing the exciting thing you're doing.
All right, thank you for the opportunity. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Bye now.